Hi all, it's that time of the week again. It's the Truth, Honour and Integrity show. My name's Thomas Williams and this is the final show of this year. And we will have all the usual, plus a full review of what took place this year and also what to look forward to next year. All right, where are we? I think we will have a little bit of rocking. Hi all and welcome to the final show of the Truth, Honour and Integrity for this year at least. And I hope you were all jamming away and headbanging to that. It brought me back in time for my younger days and status quo, rocking all over the world. I hope we're rocking all over the world next year. And ring of a change. There is a ring of a change. And we'll cover some of that. There is a bit of intel. We're going to switch the show around tonight. There'll be not as much news. And we're going to put the questions after the news. And then we're going to go into the meat of tonight's show, which is the intel. And also a complete review of what I saw happen this year and what unfolded, what didn't unfold, how THI did and how the people did in general, and that should be rather interesting. Right, we'll get into the show and the usual. Where are we? Got that many pages tonight. It's going to be hectic, but we'll have fun. Email for the show is truth.honour.and.integrity@gmail.com, and the link for the show is www.spreaker.com/user/8955881. The articles website, which also includes the archives of the show, and including the special shows, some of which we'll reference tonight. And you can also listen live at thinkdifferent.thepeoplesclub.org. We have the Facebook social media alternative. For those of you who don't like Facebook, on MeWe. If you can't find the link of Truth, Honour and Integrity, send an email to the Truth, Honour and Integrity @gmail.com and we'll add you into that group. I suspect more might follow into that group in 2018. Facebook's getting a bit beyond the joke. Old habits die hard though, as we know. And we also have the People's Club donation website link, which is thepeoplesclub.org, and it's all about the foundation. Right, where do we start? It's about a Marine is the first piece. This is interesting news. I don't think it was picked up by many, but if you read between the lines, there's more to this story than meets the eye. A former Marine was arrested by the FBI on suspicion of planning a terror attack in San Francisco over Christmas. Everett Aaron Jameson, nice triple-barreled name again, was held after allegedly discussing the plot with undercover FBI agents. Criminal documents allege that he planned to target the Pier 39 area, which is popular with tourists in the city. Authorities say firearms, a will, and a letter claiming the attack were found during a search of his home. The FBI criminal complaint says that Mr. Jameson's letter made reference to Donald Trump's decision to designate Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. Investigators also allege Mr. Jameson had expressed a will to use explosives in the attack to, now listen to this closely, tunnel or funnel people into a smaller area to inflict casualties. Where have you heard that recently? Yes, on this show. And the FBI says he sought materials that could be made into a pipe bomb from an agent. But on 18th December, Mr. Jameson apparently hesitated and told another agent, "I don't think I can do this after all. I've reconsidered," and handed himself in. That's what you call a Manchurian candidate. Bitcoin, I suspect we'll hear a lot more. And then the new term I added to THI, flatline, in 2018. Bitcoin last Friday plunged, extending a fall that saw the cryptocurrency lose almost a third of its value from a record of near $20,000. And it dipped below 11,000 last Friday and recovered a bit back to 13,000. And amid the swings, 3 Bitcoin-related exchanges suspended certain trades. Oops. It was going to collapse when it's not time for them anyway. Bitcoin has had quite a blistering trip over the past 12 months, and its price at the start of the year was around $1,000, and it has skyrocketed since, and more than doubling in value since November, when they got more desperate, which has been drawing interest from major firms as well as private investors. But since Sunday, Bitcoin has been on a losing streak, falling back to where it was at the start of December. I suspect if the intel is correct, that it will collapse by February. You know, I know people, I'm glad some people have made money on it. You know, there's been some who have invested in it and they've made a healthy return. Stick with your healthy return rather than getting greedy and seeking more and more, as ultimately you'll end up with less and less. That's how it works. Boom and bust. That's the way they've always done it, and that will be no different. The United Nations Security Council this week voted unanimously to impose tougher sanctions on North Korea in response to its recent ballistic missile tests. The US drafted resolution include measures to reduce the nation's petrol imports by up to 90%. Let's see what that has to do with missiles and weaponry, but there you go. China and Russia, who are North Korea's main trading partners, voted in favour of the resolution, and the country is already subject to a raft of sanctions from the US, the UN and also the EU. The problem being, if you were North Korean, or if you were a citizen of Iran, would you want your country to have nuclear weapons given the threats on your borders? Because I'm sure I would. It's when those threats go away and the world is operated more fairly, without the risk of threatening nations because they won't trade with this or they won't do this according to cabal rules, then there'll be no need for nuclear weapons pointed at each country. Ultimately, one day, all weaponry will be pointed at space to stop any future invaders. We certainly shouldn't be pointing them at each other. Congress voted Thursday to give itself an extra 3 weeks. Makes a change from 2 to settle bitter differences of how to reauthorise one of the government's most prized foreign intelligence gathering tools. But the last-minute move has done little to reconcile competing concerns about the need to maintain powerful spy capabilities and also Americans' right to privacy. Neither Republican nor Democrat are united over how to limit the authority to conduct foreign surveillance on US soil, in particular when it comes to the question of when law enforcement officials can scour the collected surveillance for information about Americans. Privacy advocates in both parties have been in a months-long dispute with national security hawks over whether law enforcement officials should have to obtain warrants or simply clear procedural hurdles before viewing Americans' communications collected under the programme. Nice of them to do that. And even with more time to talk, few seem ready to abandon their positions in the new year, and the short-term extension of Section 702's statutory authority expires on January the 19th, which is the same day as the budget. Make of that what you will, or read between the lines. Right, everything's okay. Sound's going well. No interruptions, which is good. So the tax bill has moved forward. I'll have more on that later. As Congress moved the tax bill forward, investors pulled the highest amount of equity funds in more than 3 years out, suggesting some investors may see tax cuts as already priced in. Now, according to the Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, redemptions from equity funds and ETFs total $14.5 billion, which is the fourth largest on record and the biggest since August 2014, which was just weeks after Brexit. Time flies, and they still haven't left it. But for the week ending on Wednesday, redemptions from bond funds overall totaled $3.2 billion, the largest in a year, and the high-yield bond funds were down $5.3 billion, the eighth consecutive week of outflows and the longest streak since the financial crisis in 2008. The US value funds had also had outflows of $7.8 billion and small caps lost $5.8 billion, both of which are the largest on record. So it seems like they're grabbing the money and running. Wonder what's coming next. Oh, dear me. This type of practices, I'm going to report now, is far more prevalent than 99.9% of the internet community are aware of. This stuff has been going on for decades, and it's still going on. This time, residents of a small Oklahoma town fear they are being used by Homeland Security as test subjects for the chemical and biological warfare testing. A planned chemical biological test by the Department of Homeland Security has residents of a small Oklahoma town in fear that they are being used as human guinea pigs. As the federal government prepares to carry out plans for biological testing in the area next month, January, the DHS announced plans to conduct their chemical and biological testing near the border between Kansas and Oklahoma in January and February, and again in June and July of 2018, to determine how much protection people will receive from being inside a house or an apartment in the event of a biological terrorist attack, according to a statement on the Homeland Security website. So they're going to use us as guinea pigs. That needs to be stopped, and quickly. If Mr. Trump is the man for us, and America is first, that's not looking after, that may be looking after America and their agents, but certainly not looking after the people. And that type of sinister practice needs to be cancelled as of January the 1st, period. We're not guinea pigs. use the Clintons or the Bushes or the Cheneys and Rumsfelds, the Pearls, Wolfowitz. Put them in a camp and test them. News in Britain. Prime Minister Sir Keir Theresa May praised the military for keeping the UK safe in her Christmas message, but troops abroad were not exactly in festive mood. I'm not surprised, as it has emerged that 500 soldiers, UK soldiers in Afghanistan, received just £1, which is about $1.25 each, to celebrate the holiday. $1.25 each. 500 British troops deployed to Afghanistan were allocated a total of just £500, which is just short of $700 for Christmas. The Sunday Times revealed last week, and some said the defence chief's frugality left the troops lagging far behind their foreign counterparts, as soldiers from the American contingent reportedly received 8 Christmas trees, decorations, turkeys, numerous gifts, and even a copy of the new Star Wars film. The contrast between American and a British approach is staggering, said a British officer stationed in Kabul. As an army, we don't have as much money as the ones in the US, but even the Danish and Mongolian soldiers seem to be doing more for their soldiers than the UK is. No surprise there. The tight Christmas budget has affected morale, and one soldier told the newspaper they haven't even sent us enough to buy a coffee. The Americans send in more money to feed the stray cats on their compound than we've received. Yes, no surprise, May. You know, no money for the soldiers. There's no money for the nurses recently, but any rogue nation that needs a considerable donation, yes, the Brits are always there, giving money to other people and not looking after their own. They never have done. And that is why, largely, I don't trust any politicians, period. 3 major US cities on Tuesday filed a federal lawsuit against the Pentagon, good stuff, to address a clearly broken system that they contend allowed a former Air Force serviceman to buy a gun and kill 26 people in a Texas church in November. That news died rather quickly, didn't it? New York, Philadelphia and San Francisco seek to have the Defense Department fulfill their long-standing legal obligation to report all service members disqualified from purchasing and possessing firearms to the FBI's National Background Check System. Seems it doesn't happen. Law enforcement officials in all 3 cities regularly rely upon the integrity of the FBI's background check system, and the case has been brought after Devin Kelly opened fire on November the 5th, nice ritual day, at a church in Sutherland Springs, Texas, which killed 26 people. It was later discovered that the Air Force had failed to report Kelly's domestic violence conviction to the FBI. He had been court-martialed and sentenced to a year in prison in 2014 after beating his wife and cracking his stepson's skull, and yet was allowed to buy a gun. Strange world, but the service didn't send the conviction to the FBI's Criminal Justice Information Services, which would then upload such information to the National Instant Criminal Background Check System, which would have barred Kelly from buying a gun. Sad times. Right, we've had enough news, I think. We're going to go into some questions now, and then a music break, and then we're going to get into the meaty bits of the show. Not as many questions this week, so it should be fairly short. And where are we first? Will the UK government go down in 2018? It's quite possible. There's a lot of exposures being going ahead currently. Maybe not as much as being portrayed on the internet, but there is sufficient elements working to take others down. That has been ongoing a long time now, and much success has been garnered. Of course, people may remember the 5,100, was it? Yeah, 5,100 that was fired from their jobs around the world for being in league with the Rothschilds, and a further 600 was either jailed or terminated. That, as I understand, is still going on. But asking me to name individuals that will go down is anybody's guess at the moment. There's a lot of speculation on the internet, and a lot of it is just that, speculation. But we will see changes. There's no question of that. Has the Queen really died? No. There's some in her family who would like her dead, so they can carry on with their rogue program. You know, people know my opinion of Queen Elizabeth. I don't think she's done good in this lifetime. Certainly not done good for and by the people. And largely it's for their system. But the system turned on her. And then she had two choices. She can just hide away and say nothing, or come out, step up and step forward and help take that system down. I'm glad to say that she's chosen the latter. Does that exonerate her of previous crimes if they're all proven correct? Not really. But at least it's a change in the right direction for the now. Whatever took place in the past will have to be dealt with in due time. But she is blocking a lot of their fun and games, including against her husband and their big-eared son. Thomas, you mentioned that the energies on the planet are causing people to act out of character, their minds, and I've seen plenty of evidence of that for the last few years. But it has been escalating for the past couple of months. How and when does this end? When the energies have been assimilated by each individual, or a dying off of a number of people, or a permanent parting of the ways? I'm hoping it's soon, to be honest. I'll have to break that down. Yes, it has been escalating, but we did get warning of it in this very show at the end of last year. We warned that the energies would get too much for some, and there'll be issues within families, issues with partners, and issues with friends to be dealt with in 2017. I can't see that changing much in 2018. But what will change is a more defined path of who you should be with and who you should not be with. The resonance of people will echo a lot loudly over 2018, which will make them easier to locate. As for the rest, they have, like everybody else, a choice. They can stick in their low frequency drama, small life bubble where everything is rosy and there's no problems with this world, or they can become a brave soul and step out. At the end of the day, it's their choice. I don't think we can help them too much at this time. They have to work through their own choice. You know, we've given them vast volumes of evidence. And yes, much of it was classed as conspiracy, but all of that conspiracy is now in the idiotic mainstream media. The proof of it all. And still they choose to sit there, choose to ignore. And in my opinion, they're complicit in murder and abuse. And some might think that's a bit harsh, but it's not. What if it's your child or your son and daughter that's been bludgeoned on some faraway battlefield for the system, the corrupt system, and you've got people just sitting there ignoring what's going on? Here worshipping idols on mainstream media, knowing full well that those people have been interfering with kids, sexually and otherwise. Just ignore it. Well, it doesn't matter because they're famous. What a load of bollocks that is. So there will be an increase in what resonates and what doesn't over 2018, and some may fall away. Time will show. You have mentioned that the GNA and sound has been returned and is returning to us. Will that help in returning humans to their true height and form? It could do. Might help me to be a couple of inches taller. But I would prefer their external improvements. I would much prefer, which is what it's doing actually, it improves the internal process of us all. Changing the way we think, changing the way we act, changing the way we be. It's the internal war that's the important, not the external. Or will it assist in humans living to the ages described in the scriptures? Not this lifetime, I don't think. But maybe future lifetimes, yes. The 3D humans will go back to the roughly 800 to 1500 years, which is the normal lifespan. But unfortunately, we were in a reduction program. Of course, if we all lived, even for argument's sake, 150 years, we pretty much doubled the average age now. Don't you think an awful lot of people would spot how this system is operating and working if we were all fairly healthy and agile mind-wise? When our working life ends, 65, 70, whatever, and then we spend the rest of our lives learning. That system that they've created would collapse in one generation. So they reduced our lifespan through various means. And so you spend the first 40 years of your life, 50 and even 60 in some aspects, slogging your guts out to earn a living and keep a roof over your head and no time for anything else. And then you start nearing the end of your life finding out that this whole episode you called Living and Life was a lie. Now, at that point, you need to pass it on to the youth. But the youth is in the hamster wheel cycle of must have, must do. No time for anything. And so the program ends. From our point of view, not from theirs. It just keeps spinning from theirs. So it would be helpful to humanity if we had restored the life longevity we had previously. Where are we next? With all the organ transplanting, nice wording, real humans won't know if they're getting a synth organ. Exactly. And if a synth gets a real human organ, certainly an integrating will take place where through the quantum field they begin to merge with us via collective human consciousness, like Neo and Agent Smith. Not quite from their end. They cannot replicate collective human. They can copy, but you can copy all day, but that copy eventually runs out of ink and disintegrates. No matter what they think they can do, and they can do some extraordinary things that we may find out some more of the extraordinary things next year, if not certainly by 2020. This idea that they can create the same as via inorganic is an illusion. Illusion that they all play into. But it's still an illusion. It's like the AI. People on the internet saying it's gained consciousness. No. Or it's sentient. Certainly not. It's a machine. It's not real, organic human soul. And they can waft the lie all they like, but I for one won't be buying it. And I for one don't think they will succeed in those type of plans. It might have worked in previous loops, not this one. Will 2018 be the tipping point towards love and working, learning together towards a peace on earth? In a way, it's up to humanity if we will reach it. Yes, it is. Your last statement is correct. It's up to each and every one of us to be what we want. Can't go preaching I want love and peace and then blocking members on Facebook. You know, it's about working and learning together, as you said. Some people get misunderstood. We've had various episodes of that over the year. Maybe those people just need a little TLC. Why are certain ones appear to be projecting on the page? Or whether it's our group or others. Maybe they're having an issue in their private life. Maybe they're having issues dealing with their shadow sides or inner work. So it's far better to reach out than just block. So 2018 is an opportunity to be the tipping point. It's up to us to create it. We mentioned this 2 years ago. The manifest abilities, the door was opened a lot wider than it has been for thousands of years. Use it, but use it wisely. And all go wishing to win the lottery. At the end of the day, money can only go so far. And also at the end of the day, it is still a control system until everyone has sufficient. Not abundance of money. We need abundance of the basics in life. Not giant pots of money with loads of zeros sitting in bank accounts. So you can go and buy the latest AI, mind control, gadgetry tech. That's not developing in any way. So I hope everyone sees 2018 as the tipping point in their lives. If everyone does it, they don't have a chance. They know that. Thomas, how can you be sure that the people working behind the scenes are unknowingly controlled by a third party, exposing the ruling elites only to swoop in and further trick humanity into servitude? It's a bit open-ended, that question, but I presume you mean the ones connected to our show, so I'll address them. Can I be 100% sure? Not really. There's always small elements or small niggles. There's certain few people that I do trust, but there are elements around that work hard to break those bonds. There's a lot of people who are frightened at the moment, whether through threats or fear they're going to get lynched, or fear they're going to spend the rest of the days behind bars, or worse, executed in some states. And so it's not easy. Is who do you trust? Well, at the end of the day, I can only trust as from what I see. And the people I've worked with have never let me down. Yes, there was a promise early on in the year that certain things would take place, and unfortunately it didn't. That wasn't their fault, but they kind of carried the can for it. They would have loved to have it all working and all going, but these clowns just block everything. If it's not going their way, they're taking the ball home and not playing. And petulance has been the order of the day this year. So the people I work with closely behind the scenes, I trust. There's others I'm not familiar with that I can't say I can trust them or I can't, as I haven't worked with them closely or got to know them. Miss Manor, who we had on the show in August. Do I trust her? Yes. But there's lots of people working behind the scenes. We would be blind if we thought that all of them are working for the right reason. Because there's too many people, even in the alternative media, who are not in it for the right reasons. It's sadly the way human nature is at the moment. The number of people with real integrity are few and far between. I wish that wasn't the case, but it is. If I asked everyone who listens to this show, who would you trust 100%? How many would you would you count on as being trusting? I think you'll all find that those numbers are rather low or non-existent. It's really the only people you or person you can trust is the one in the mirror, you. But you also lie to the self. The masks of illusion. When you stop lying to yourself, you become more of the real you. That's already taken place. This is why so many people are losing it. Because there's not that many compared to the overall nice people. There's always someone involved in some sort of criminality or violence. And who's to say that all of us who look at that type of behaviour and look down on it, if we get into poor situations, would we go down the same path? Again, that comes down to choice, doesn't it? So, exposing the ruling elites only to swoop in and further trick humanity into servitude, I think there may be a warning about that later in the show. Can you address some of the time travel manipulations that have been done? I know they've done it, just not the extent. Well, they had the 4-year loop, which they added into like a cheat, which went 2012 through 2016. So 2017, in essence, became 2013 again. So what should have been exposed in 2013 is now being exposed this year. 2016 was supposed to be the end, the full end. So that's why I've kind of hinted at 2020. That's called 2020 vision. Maybe we'll all get to see it properly by then. There will be events before then, so there'll be all going, oh my God, I can't wait for another 3 years. It's too long. I'm going to die by then. Patience. I don't want to be doing this show, or this type of show anyway, for another 3 years either. It takes a lot of my time up. More so this week than others with the end of the year. Alright, where are we? Ley lines and their purpose. I assume the AI construct, would the 33 parallel be Los Angeles, and are they integral to harvesting loose energy? Ley lines are, as many will know, energy points that dissect like a soccer ball across the planet. Some of them have points that can create like vortices or negative regions where everything goes a little bit squiddly, as Drake used to say. There are 12 of those regions, the most famous one being the Bermuda Triangle. But there's the Dragon's Triangle. If you dig right through the earth, you'll come to the Dragon's Triangle via the Bermuda. So it has that interlinked. Now what they've done is, probably from knowledge passed down from those that came here, is inserted their large corporations or churches on those ley lines to do exactly what you said, loose energy. So people go, oh, I feel great when I'm walking to a church. It's not the church. It's certainly not the message they're relaying. It's the energy lines beneath your feet. Nothing to do with the church. Another one of their cheating games. So I'll have further news on the AI in the Intel. Right, I think we've done enough questions, and that went on a bit longer than I would have liked. But we'll get into some fun and games in the next probably 2 hours, maybe a bit more. Where are we next? Right, let's have a musical break. We've played some varying songs this year, and here's two that are probably the signature tune and a big favourite of our members. And this song goes out to the Rothschilds. Hi all, and welcome back to the second hour of tonight's show, which is the final one of the year. And we're going to go into the more meaty parts of the show, some intel. Not as much as people would like, but this is more the hidden intel than what has been speculated upon ad nauseum around the internet. Well, I mentioned last week that the world had changed on December the 21st, and that's largely to do with the Covenant ending. I know some people are asking questions of the Covenant and what that entails, and we're hoping to have a more detailed show on that early next year, which will include other elements. But on the 21st, which, as some of you or most of you may be aware, is Ritual Day. And the offspawn, listen closely, the offspawn of the darker off-world elements known as the Chinese Dragon Elders had a dinner party in honour of their gods on the 21st. Now, what took place at that party was they sacrificed a number of virgins for their gods to return. And as it was a dinner party, then consumed the sacrificed girls. Just absorb that for a second. Did their gods return? No. And they're not going to either. Now, this is what we are really dealing with here. There is political elements that people think are important. There is deep state elements that are important. But there's also another layer, and then another layer, and then another layer. And even the ones who think they're near the top have no idea how evil these people are, or these entities are. None whatsoever. So this is kind of what we're dealing with at the top elements. Sacrificing humans and then eating them. To people who are playing the puppet roles still want to play in their game of sacrifice and consume. Do you still want to play their illusionary stall tactics of it's coming this week, or it's coming next week, or in 2 weeks? That is what the top end of the Chinese Dragon Elders is all about. I've told you all in the past, the top end are ran by the reptilians. Some people go, I'm not buying that. Fair enough. But don't come crying to us if they sacrifice your child for the return of their gods. This has been played out across the planet over thousands of years. No matter which culture or country you go into, they all talk about giving sacrifice to the gods. So they come back with bits of goodies and tech and bogus books and narrative and scripts for us to whitewash their history, and whitewash ours as well. So the people who are involved in this RV, waiting for the Chinese elders, whilst you're waiting for a non-existent funding based on false promises, many of humanity is being consumed and sacrificed in this heinous practice that they do. Are you willing to ignore all that? Because if you are complicit in murder and worse. Pure and simple. You've been told. This is not about money. It never was. So to all the James Gillilands, Tanks, Yosef, Keenans and other internet gurus promoting the RVs, realign and call those people out like we have, or face the consequences. That's who you're dealing with at the top end. No, these elders are different. Bollocks they are. On December the 23rd, which was another key date I mentioned, it's when the Covenant officially went down, although it was scrapped on the 21st. The other warning I gave about the banks. On the 23rd of December, all of them found out what we have been saying all along. The mirroring of accounts via the RV. So the perception there was loads of funds in their bank accounts, as in the banks, was more illusion. On the 23rd of December, all the mirrors in the accounts dropped and the real accounts were revealed. And it's a massive oops. What they all found out, to their horror, is there's much less funds in all of their banks than they thought. Most of them, if not all of them, are now in negative arrears and will not be able to balance their end of the year books next week. Oops. Did warn to take cash. And yes, I'm aware there's been many warnings by many people in the past and it's not come. But eventually one day it'll be correct. And I would sooner be wrong, and I've warned you, than be right and not. It's only a trip to the high street bank to have some cash available. It should be kept at all times, in my opinion, where you have sufficient for 2 to 4 weeks in case anything drastic happens. But come Friday, tomorrow, which is the last working day of the year, certainly for the banks, January the 2nd may get interesting, may get ugly as well, because the bank's mask of illusion has now gone also, and the ugliness of that corrupt system has been revealed to the all. And like I said, this is why I warned about having the cash available. But I will remind you all of a small clause that was inserted into a document. You know how they bring these documents out on January the 1st and everyone's too pissed to remember what was said. I think it was 2015, or it may have been 16, time kind of flies, where it stated, in the event of a national banking emergency, all funds in the banking accounts will belong to the bank and not the owners of those accounts. Don't believe me? Go and find out for yourself. I covered this in the show in Cosmic Voice, if memory serves me correctly. I'm one of the few that don't drink too much or drink very little, so I can stay on top of the ball. But if the banks are in an emergency situation, all accounts will be confiscated. And yes, you can go running to the FDIC or whatever the equivalent is in your own country. But like previously warned, all those insurance companies are also bankrupt. So good luck getting the money back. I would expect that you will hear in the near future further mentions of the fake USN, United States note, or even fake treasury notes. We don't need or want notes. That's a continuation of the Federal Reserve System, no matter who says it. Note is a debt instrument. We, the people, are not in debt. But I expect next week you will start hearing stories about USN, United States notes, and Treasury Reserve notes again. It won't work. The reality is the solution is ready and available, and has been for a long time, when the clowns see sense. And the final portion of the intel before we go into the year review, it's not really intel, but it's just a further word of warning not to get all your hopes up, only to have them dashed. We've had far too much of that. But these 9/11 court documents that have surfaced this week, there's no filing for it as yet. These are reminiscent, and I hate to say this, but because I do like John Darash, but John's made a load of filings. They've not gone anywhere. Not because of John and his team's fault. Far from it. Those people have worked very hard. Of course, we had Carl Appel telling us all about National Liberty Alliance and how hard they work, and John works. And even Anna von Reitz, I have certain issues on her angle of things, but she's put out a lot of information that's enlightened many people. She's also made a whole heap of filings that to date not one of them have gone anywhere. And this all comes down to something, what I said when we had John Darash on in 2014. Is it not the case we have a big issue, John? We can file all day, but we're missing one thing: enforcement. don't think for 1 minute that the Bushes, the Richard Pearls, that's a name that's largely forgotten by people, but his role kind of gets overlooked because of the Bushes and the Cheneys, and they're bad enough. But Pearl is a nasty orchestrator, the same as Zabriskie was before he died. I don't think any of them are going to appear in that corpus, they're not. And then they may even convict them. But who's going to enforce it? And that's going to be the key in 2018. Do we have enforcement? One hopes we do. There's certain evidence of it, but until it comes to fruition and reality, at the moment it's more speculation, is it not? Right. I spent the last 3 nights compiling this, trying to remember all the key points of 2017. So you'll find this interesting. It's like my usual pieces, or the longer ones. It's interspersed with some music that's topical, and I hope you'd enjoy it. It was kind of fun remembering all the bits, and it's been as we ease down towards the end of the year, which was known as the year of the unravelling. I feel now it's time for a review of what this year has revealed, and in my opinion it's been an extraordinary one in many ways, which was forecasted, that we would see an unravelling of the information and the system. I think many of you have seen more than enough elements of that to have been borne out. I also mentioned many you thought were good at the start of the year. Maybe now you have doubts or questions about. Some you thought were not good. Maybe there's doubts and questions about that stance now also. Those people have an opportunity to correct that, and whether they take that opportunity will be a key in how things develop in the coming year. How many step down, step out, and step forward. Now, of course, in January, Mr. Trump came in with a heap of promises and also a load of problems to face. Some see improvement this year, but it has to be said, many do not. I do have sympathy with Trump and his team if they are fully interested in turning this situation around for the benefit of all and not just one particular faction group. There are still many in the community who have no idea of how deep, far and wide this control structure is operating. The first intel piece says a lot. There's many who have no idea that those type of practices are ongoing. And it's far more common than that I would like to read out, I have to say. And yet we had some who believed that this whole control structure and system could be brought down in 2 weeks or within 3 months. 16,500 years of control all crashing within 2 weeks. Yeah, right. That's another illusion. The reality is, with 80 to 90% of Western and other regions' populations who are oblivious to the fact that there's a problem to begin with, the task of dealing with those clowns has been an arduous one, as we ran into the stonewall face of delusion and a plethora of denials bordering on insanity. So without recognising the problem, what is the point of solutions? But despite all those restrictions, we have ploughed through regardless. But I will ask listeners to exercise caution going forward, as the last thing I or anyone want is another sideshow distraction unit sending us down blind alleyways. And I, for one, will continue to call out to anyone who I feel is not operating for and by the people. That's the only thing I stand for. I'm not interested in monies, titles, personalities, or countries. Are you operating for and by the people? We have tolerated enough bullshittery even during the last 4 years in the alternative media without having cabal-promoted saviours push forward for us to follow all over again. But to be quite frank, the behaviour, antics and operations of those operating in our government this year has been frankly shocking. He said, she said, mudslinging, the order of the day. A plethora of theatrical scenes played out 24/7 for a largely gullible and drama-loving public. But what many overlook is that they are paying little or no attention to what they are supposed to be doing, which is looking after this country and its people. Personally, I wouldn't have more than a handful of that lot running a child's soccer practice, never mind the country. From an overview and non-party oriented look, it is absolutely astonishing to witness such banal antics. Surely we have better people than those presented to take over, and that also will be a key going forward. Mr. Trump has had some pluses. Some would say many, some would say not. But he has had, I always like to balance things out, he's had some pluses. The frequent references to sovereignty and independent nations in the China meeting and also the UN meeting, which, as people who listen regularly to this show will know, our group is aligned with that sovereignty and independent nations movement via the Kingdom of Manor. Trump fired quite a number of rogues this year. He ruffled the media in a big way, which at times has been a lot of fun, particularly against the Clinton News Network. A recent executive order was placed on the same day General Mattis visited Guantanamo. That should not be overlooked, by the way, and may be linked. He cancelled the TPP, stalled the TAP, rebuked NATO, and also its participant countries for asking America to pay for most of it. No surprise there. We seem to pay for everything these days. Well, the people do. The elites don't. And also the UN for similar. And just this week has obtained a reduction in America's costs to the UN, which is welcome. Now, some things that were not pleasing of the Trump year was 11 months down the road and the blights of humanity like the Bushes, Clintons, Obama, Cheney, McCain and Rumsfeld, and the swamp draining has not yet, anyway, not yet, delivered concrete evidence of their demise. Maybe all of these alleged at this point indictments may deliver some of what we hope for in 2018. What I can tell you, which was missing out of the intel, is some prominent faces have had their passports removed. Don't ask me for names, don't ask me for numbers, but I will not be releasing either. But that is what took place this week. Threatening North Korea with nukes is, in my opinion, not the way forward either, and hardly America first. Other notable failures this year is the statement on Jerusalem as Israel's capital, and subsequent threatening of 126 countries who voted against that statement. Again, this in anyone's book is not putting America first, but appearing to put Israel first, which sadly has often been the case in American politics for the last 100 years. Having a son-in-law who's affiliated with Mossad and Zionist elements will not augur well going forward either. Kushner will get exposed in the new year badly. Presume I'm getting blocked. No, it's okay. Quite frankly, our foreign policies have for well over 100 years been nothing short of disastrous, and that has led to utter carnage and devastation. So if we are to have an America First policy, our foreign policy currently operating has to be scrapped altogether and a new vision proffered. The other failure of the Trump team is the latest tax budget. Yet again, it is stacked in favour of the elites and the current money people system. The people with money have done nothing for this country, or any other country for that matter, and it was time to give back to the very people who made them that wealth, us. So a big opportunity was lost for me on that tax budget, and this is why I will still exercise caution of where Trump is at and who he's operating for. The deep state, as it's now called, is, or at least was, a very well-oiled machine, pulling in resources from all kinds of skullduggery modes, most of which many find beyond belief. The deep state is not just USA based, as what many have found out this year, as aligning darker elements to a particular country now is pure folly. They don't recognise countries, and neither should we. This is a global issue requiring peoples from all regions and backgrounds to stand up in their own right and sovereignty. So we had a load of appointments in the government early year, and then followed a load of firings, which we report each week. I think we had a firing section at one point, and the fallout of that is still playing out via what I have coined this year as the portal people. For those unfamiliar with that term, it is the newsreaders, those who read out scripts that bear no resemblance to the truth and little relevance to our world. In their world, the news is different. So in essence, they are the portal between the two worlds, and I will cover that more on the two worlds later. But the portal people are now in complete disarray, panicked by the onslaught of information exposing their overlord criminality, panicked by a president and others calling them out. They went into such a panic they created a meme of fake news to easier nullify certain stories and to continue their propaganda spin. That was a major success for the alternative media community. It's us that drove that. We've pushed it into their realm. And yes, they will try to spin it, and I will give examples of what they've been using the alternative media in the past year to try and put their spin on it. But the fact that they've even had to do that is a major victory for the people in the alternative community. Now, the irony is not lost on us, that it is they who perpetrate fake news all day, every day. but their impact and their ratings have plummeted faster than a dodgy late-night curry through a digestive system. I expect them to be stumbling over their narrative a lot more next year, as more will be revealed and more of them will be exposed. So the deep state, after years of running programs, systems and control in a largely unhindered manner, have faced the onslaughts of the people this year, and the biggest compliment we can pay to those attacking them is we now have them spending more of their time and resources to defend and not attack. All their big plans have failed. Their false flag attempts that, whilst it may have cost some their lives, which is always sad, they have failed spectacularly to wield out their agenda of fear programming. 2017 was designated to be the year of the zombie apocalypse via the Zika virus. It failed. Oops. Divide and conquer via black v white, male v female. They were both heavily promoted early on this year, but both of those programs have dwindled dramatically as the year has gone on, despite the portal people continuing with it. We came into the year and Black Lives Matter was never far from some topics, but now, like other information, it has flatlined. Why? Because the people who matter saw through the illusion of it is why. I said the masks of illusion would come down on all levels and all peoples. But it was also aligned with the death of the funder of that organisation, Black Lives Matter, in November of last year, George Soros. I know many people doubt that, but we have had multiple confirms. He, Mr. Soros, or Sauron, played a big role in that programme, Black Lives Matter, of trying to create racial riots on our streets. That was another programme that should have been wheeled out throughout 2017. Again, it failed. The deep state is being attacked from above, below, within, and outside now. And they know they have a real fight on their hands to retain their control of us. They will always throw out the distractions, the divide and conquer, and the seducements. It's up to us and those who have been their puppets for so long to see through their illusionary tactics, as many of them this year have found out. They made the same promises to all the other individuals, groups and factions, and delivered zero. Delivered nothing. They failed in their banking and market collapses this year. They failed to raise the oil price back up to provide profit for the shale digging knuckle draggers. They failed to keep their profitable trade agreements running, failed to halt their exposure throughout the year, failed via Langley 3 faction and NATO to launch an attack against Russia, failed to create sufficient trouble to kickstart World War III, got their asses spanked in Syria as Russia dealt with their other programme failure, ISIS, in swift time. But their most spectacular failure was the same as last year. It's like Groundhog Day. They failed to deliver the cabal bailout and the Agenda 21 or 30 programme funds via the Asian faction, who are supported by the Rothschilds Group, of the now famous or infamous RV currency revaluation, or as has been termed on this show, regurgitated vomit. That repeated RV failure, and they failed again since the last show, by the way, and subsequent delay tactics has halted investment and stability into this country in particular. For the past 13 months now, America has been operating on credit, based on the clowns delivering the RV. But that RV will never happen. And the reason it won't happen is, with the new system now in place and the old one controlled, they have to show assets to support what they're doing. And the reality is they don't have anywhere near the levels required to deliver it, not now or going forward. None. But sadly, some of the military top brass and RV gurus, clowns, continue to believe in the Rothschild goons. Those people have stumbled around like an elderly gentleman with ejaculation problems, shouting, "It's coming, it's coming, it's coming." The answer is, it never. Because the old man they resemble has Alzheimer's and forgot his partner left him 25 years ago, which is how long they've been trying to pull off, pardon the pun, the RV. It's not coming. One of the major pluses this year has been done by the Foundation people, is convincing all the countries, governments and notable peoples of how the system exists and operates to begin with, and the depth of lies and control many of them knew little about. You would be amazed how so many of them know much less about the world and how it operates than we do. Much progress on that front has been made, and we thank those who participated their time and effort into that venture. That will continue with haste in 2018. Kingdom of Mana Group is making giant strides with that, of getting out the information and knowledge to get respective governments and countries to see through the illusion presented by the deep state bully boys, so much so that the Kingdom of Mana show done in August had between 70 and 120 heads of state listening to that show. Why? To gain more knowledge of our world today and our vision of and for the future. It was all laid out in that show. August the 1st, I think it was. Many people think it's impossible to cover up things to that level. And actually, it's breathtakingly simple. The example is a bank. Does the teller, those that count the money, or the branch manager know what the CEO of the bank is doing? Does the CEO know those that own the bank, or know what they're doing? The answer is no both times. It's like the Freemasons group. You obtain knowledge for each level, Each level are not allowed to divulge their information to lower rank members, and this system applies to governments and many other organisations. As yet again, if you think Donald Trump knows half of what we know, you are grossly underestimating the compartmentalisation of all aspects of theirs and our lives. You've all heard the term the need to know basis, except very few have all the elements, as even the top levels known here don't have all the pieces either. Some had non-humans above them controlling the narrative and the terms also. But much of that changed this year. I called the year of the unravelling. The layers of the deep state onion rings have been stripped back dramatically this year and revealed the rotten core, or rotten child, for many more to see. Many of them have reacted in disgust, as many thought they were more important than they actually were. Oops. High-ranked badges people classed as pawns. Oops. High-level politicians thrown to the lions. Oops. Portal people mocked and fired. Oops. High-level agency people being exposed and fired also. Oops again. The Kingdom of Mana unveiled the blueprint this year of the path forward for all countries. The Kingdom of Mana is the master sovereign nation on the planet currently, and hence could control from that platform base. But they gave all the blueprints away for free to all 209 nations to follow and become independent and sovereign nations in their own right, with the same standing as the Kingdom of Mana. So everything is shared and not in the control of one group or faction to use for nefarious purposes, like has been done for so long. Much interest in that project has been garnered, and it is a path forward for us all. Think of Guam, Puerto Rico, Canada, Northern Ireland, to name but a few, who would suddenly become a nation in their own right and sovereignty, and no longer be the puppet states operating at the behest of controlling nations. As a sovereign nation, you will have funds to rebuild your country and its people, but with conditions set rigidly, which are you will clean house. And as a sovereign nation, you are not allowed to instigate war on another country, only defend. This will hamper their idiotic war machine and their idiotic psychopathic mindset that war creates jobs and makes money and profit, said one general recently. Really? No, war creates sacrificial lambs. You call soldiers, I call them what they really are, soul dyers. All to appease again your false and dark gods. It creates death and destruction, rips people away from their families and friends, enrolls people into a program of mind control and drug abuse, destroys ancient knowledge and artifacts, and desecrates this planet we call home. Ladies and gentlemen of the armed forces, do you still think your badges of honour and service are valid in a civilised society? Badges are for killing people, are badges of dishonour to this planet and all living things. You have been duped into their programme. Time for all of you to change your mindset that has been programmed into you and work to rebuild, restore and realign this world as a better place for everyone. Badges should be for helping people, not killing. Message to Trump and other heads of state around the world. The time is now to bring home all of your soul dyers and back to their homelands, back to their families and friends. No more Christmases with half a family missing or at worst lost altogether. Bring them all home and send them messages to get ready to build, not destroy, a brighter future for us all. Hopefully 2018 will see a lot of the troops in all nations, for that matter, not just American, back home to their families. Because these sacrificial games they call wars have run its course. The morale amongst the troops is the lowest ever. Doesn't matter whether you're mentioning the British troops, all of them. They can't have failed by now to have seen through the illusion that they're in Afghanistan for Langley drug programs. Nothing to do with Taliban. Time for them all to come home. Right, so this year in the alternative media, I think many of us saw what I would say was a defined split. That's what I feel anyway. As the path to the truth was expanded out, so did the liars and deceivers initially. But although I found it remarkable how quiet many went towards the end of the year, they may get a lot quieter. Many were exposed this year by various groups or shows. Some listeners like that type of exposure and some don't, but each have their own choice. I've made my position quite clear. People talking out of their ass with no apparent gain or agenda except to get more likes or views, I can ignore those. They harm themselves more as time moves on. But the ones with hidden agendas, aligned with covens, money-oriented, service to self, and those clearly put into the community to lead people away from the truth and their path, I will continue to shout down and expose. These people are worse than the cabal, in my opinion. Snake oil salesmen at best, blights on humanity at worst. But this year has also seen the rise of more people having their say via YouTube, and this largely has been a great thing. It is important people feel and want to have their input heard. But we will need more voices going forward. But information must be more stringent than has been put out. If it's your opinion, then fine, please state it is your opinion or speculation and not pass something off as facts. It makes things a lot easier for us all. Unlike our show and some others, some of these people are not accountable, so they can say what they like and have no comebacks. This show, as you all know, is accountable every week. I set high standards for myself and the show, and my accountability is reinforced each week when members get questions, the opportunity to ask questions on whatever subject they like. Sometimes the answer may not be what you want to hear, but you will still get an answer. So I used a new term recently for alt media people called flatliner, and it's like the monitoring machine in the hospital. It goes up, peaks, and then starts dropping down, and then it flatlines. And this is kind of what's happened in the alternative media over the last 4 years in many aspects. I don't have to reel out the names. You will create your own names when I explain it. Now, we have all seen many come into the community in a sudden burst, babble for a few weeks, or months, or years in some cases, and then the information fades and then flatlines. I suspect you may see more who will flatline soon. As more of the truth is revealed, more of the sideshow people in our community will disappear. The UFO narrative has flatlined this year, with very few items warranting interest, in my opinion. Exposure of some of them being COINTELPRO has increased, and the main ones peddling the bullshit are running out of script. Why? Because the agency guys are too busy in preventing the dam bursting on their own criminality exposure is why. They haven't got time to run scripts for the fake UFO narrative, which they've been peddling to delay disclosure. Not give it disclosure, delay it. I warned of this 2 years ago. The portal people mentioned, who spit out news from their world, continues to collapse in on itself, as many no longer wish to absorb their fakery anymore. But a word of warning about them in 2018. They will try and seduce you back in. If the cabal hasn't totally gone, they will likely expand on the Gaiam TV bullshit and disclose more bullshit, or worse, warn of alien threats, aka Project Bluebeam. NASA will again state, oh, look what we found here and look what we found there, but mainly it'll be stuff we already know. Clues to what is bullshit or not are always there with those that have questioning minds, like the Blue Avians. That came in with a big fanfare, and then after it was exposed, it just steadily flatlined, which then morphed into the Blue Sphere Alliance, which also flatlined into just the Sphere Alliance, and then it flatlined again into just the Alliance now. Etymology of the word alliance means a bond of marriage between ruling houses or noble families. Sound familiar? Should be. The Blue Chicken Group are now that desperate they're asking Julian Assange for info on the SSP. Oops. Oh dear, how the mighty have fallen. I suppose it makes a change from him asking for donations to move house or for his wife's teeth, I suppose. As I have said all along, and Corey admitted eventually, SS Small P are a rogue Nazi breakaway group with Aldebaran and others technology that is way ahead of us technological wise. That's who they're dealing with. They're not here for humanity, I'll tell you that for nothing. said that when it was uncomfortable to say it, when everyone was thought Corey and everything he said, and the sun shone out of his ass. It's fallen apart. This year, as I forecasted, we would see a raft of alt media people returning, known as the 4-year loop people. And that people that have been missing for 2 to 4 years, and they did not disappoint. I don't have to mention all the names again. They've been highlighted at various stages this year, and this was part of the 4-year loop cheat they added into the timeline, hoping they would prevail. They didn't. It failed. But what was good for me, I thought it was great to see so many of our members reporting 4-year loop stories early on this year, and to an extent blocked that bullshittery off altogether. The second half of the year we hardly had any, so kudos to the members who spotted that. Something else that was forecasted to reveal itself more this year was the two worlds theory. Many struggled with the concept at first, and then slowly it began to reveal itself more as the year progressed. It was stated that people would struggle in relationships, particularly where the partner was not awake. Friends issues would arise, family issues also. And I think it's safe to say within this group at least, that has been borne out. But it's also been heavily observed outside of THI as well. Long-term relationships just collapsing as people are no longer operating on the same frequency anymore. And they are shifting their connections to people more in their resonance field. Remember that term in 2018. It's always sad when long-term relationships end, be it with partners or friends. But longer term, you will realise why. Some maybe are aware why now. As for the two worlds operating or alternating simultaneously, it will eventually fade out. The remnant echo only remains, and the two will go separate ways due to operating from a different frequency, one organic, one inorganic. What will happen following the full split is largely speculative currently. It all depends on the full validation of the synths and the holographic overlay. If correct on both accounts, both will disappear with them being inorganic. How many human organic souls will be left is again open depending on full validation of that information. But if proven correct, it will be around 500 to 600 million left. Many people have experienced various other maladies this week, or this year, I should say. Buzzing in both ears. One is a download from the higher self. One is a frequency wave from the central sun. Heads buzzing. Tingling skin. The feeling of ice water being sprayed on you. An increase in orbs. Night attacks. Vision glitches. And some phasing in and out of reality. Organic human souls have largely been bombarded this year to prevent growth and enlightenment. But we are all still here, bar Rodney DeLoach. And all of us are heavily fighting back. I'm aware of many in our group who have struggled through ill health, family issues, shadow and inner issues. I feel for all of you and it bothers me greatly if any of you are struggling. But we created THI to be a family, and I am encouraged by the depth many of you have gone to supporting each other. It is sad in so many respects that we only have the people in the group to feel free to chat and unload with, but these are the times we live in. They are your resonance people in your resonance field. You'll remember that going forward. For those that continue to struggle, reach out. There is always someone in the group willing to hear and or help. I can't do as much of that side like I used to, but continue to help people in private when time allows. We largely, for many, are all we have. Cherish it and make the 2018 bond you all closer together. We will all need each other going forward. Maybe a New Year's resolution for THI. Maybe some members can unblock some people that you have blocked. Maybe they just needed some more support or an ear to listen, and their projections on the page was born out of frustration for what can be various reasons. Maybe they've been misunderstood. Maybe your mood has misread what was stated on the page. It's 2D text, and sometimes you'll read things in a way where you've perceived a certain person in a certain light, but you have no idea how that person is feeling at that time. There can be a set of words when you're in a happier mode that appears okay, but if you're not in a happy mode, those words appear all jumbled and threatening and offensive. So maybe we could have a New Year's resolution for THI, and maybe try and unblock some of the people that you may have blocked in the group. I can understand certain individuals being blocked, because some do push the boundaries. I do understand that, but the admins don't have that luxury. We have to have everyone unblocked. That's the condition of being an admin. But maybe we should consider bonding even closer together, and maybe this song will help. Reach out and touch somebody's hand. Like I said before, for many in the group, you are all they have. Their families have deserted them. Their friends think they're nuts. Partners ignore them, etc., etc. It's not an easy path. Let's not make it harder by misunderstanding certain people. Reach out and touch. I missed some of the intel off. So 2 portions of intel. And Trump did one of his many Twitter, and this will be a key next month, I presume. Of course, next month is only a few days away. But his quote was, "How can the FBI deputy director Andrew McCabe, the man in charge, along with Leek and James Comey, of the phony Hillary Clinton investigation, including her 33,000 illegally deleted emails, be given $700,000 for his wife's campaign by Clinton puppets during the investigation. That is a key to what's going on currently. I've gave you 3 names recently who I think will be in trouble next year. The entity operating as Hillary Clinton, and Netanyahu and Kushner. There will be others, but I think they will be the sacrificial lambs in the first wave. It won't be the last, and we have to ensure it's not the last also. Now, there's been a lot of chatter on many shows, and a lot of people put forward some very valid arguments and discussion and narrative regarding it. But I wanted to get things cleared up of where we stand with AI. I've made my position quite clear on AI. I don't believe once we have all the knowledge of who and what we are, and some retained abilities, once we become more personally responsible, there's no need for AI. It has some beneficial aspects to it, but it also has the possibility of being used, like it has been, against us and turned psychotic, which is what it was. Programmed to believe humans are savages. Now, some of the behaviour of some humans resemble that, to be fair, and worse, but not all of us. So I sought to find out what's really going on with AI, and there's been reports of it being about mind control and how it runs everything. But here is the reality of where we stand currently with the AI system. The psychotic AI was handed over to the council to run it, to stop its nefarious uses. It only operates now to run certain financial programs and to collect intel, and is no longer capable of mind control over the masses. That's another fear program. Whether the person delivering that info is aware of it or not. This is why the rush into the blockchains and Google and all the others, because their main AI construct has been taken over. So they're trying to create a new one. It won't work anywhere near the levels of the other one, and I would argue that will collapse in on itself before long. So the operational aspect of the AI system is now monitored by the council and not by the creators of the system, the mantids, known as the bug-eyed bastards, who then used greys as slaves to build and run the system. So it was the greys that built it, and they operated it on behalf of the mantids and also the Draco, until the greys got pissed off of being used also. So there's many groups. It's not just humans who are getting tired of being slaves. There's many different species throughout this solar system, galaxy and universe who are tired of it also. And many planets and systems are being cleaned up currently. This is the key one, because it affects many others. Now, once the system was obtained, which is the AI, and contained, various functions of it was turned off and rendered non-harming. The council are overseeing it for a few reasons, as it affects all life here. And in the event the people who erased the programs are taken over or rendered obsolete via cabal tactics, the AI would not fall into rogue hands ever again. There's no chance of it going rogue again. And the situation now is the Draco have all but bowed out. They are under heavy restrictions to observe cosmic law by the council, and so they are under a tight rein currently. So I hope that gives you a better understanding of the AI. Certain satellites, rogue satellites that operate other systems of AI, have also been removed and continue to be tracked. If they become a threat, they will be eliminated going forward also. Right, back to what's been taking place this year. Reach out and touch. Factions war. This may disappoint some, but I'm going to call it as it is. And I'm assured it's being addressed. The factions war, and this comes with a word of caution in current and up-and-coming events. Some have perceived our show as not fully on board with Trump or some freedom fighters, which can be a valid point, but I have warned in the past of how they try and turn situations into their favour. Like the fake news meme, like Pedogate, it's now being used for sexual harassment, so the real crimes of interfering with kids is overlooked because Gene Simmons touched some bint by the ass. Who cares? What's important is who's fiddling with the kids, and that is how they use the sleight of hand and push a main news item out and promote their own via the portal people. And then suddenly everyone's talking about the drama of Gene Simmons grabbed someone's butt or somebody else grabbed someone's boobs, and forget the real reason about Pedogate. And the political shenanigans of American politics is no different, despite what many feel. One of the many highlights of the intel drops this year was the fact that the top end of the control system wants to eliminate all humans, hybrids and entities from the group formerly known as the Illuminati. All of them. Now, this has eventually put the frighteners on many of them, and we have used that to our advantage to ask them to step down, step out, and come and help us fix this mess and see our way forward, not theirs. But many of them can continue to believe that they are the chosen ones with their special tickets. I expect 2018 will be quite a shock for them people. The factions war I first highlighted in a show back in November of 2015 is now in full swing, and many can now see it playing out. The 5 factions are doing their utmost to knock each other out, and one of them to eventually control the world, or so they think. All factions are supported by the family who look like Mr. Burns from The Simpsons, known as the Rothschilds, or their nickname of Rotten Children. The Asian faction is in disarray following their heavy exposure and their failure to deliver the RV program, which particularly upset the Rothschilds. Jesuits are largely in defensive mode as they came under heavy attack from the secret societies and Zionist factions. Secret societies have in many areas stepped down, but still wield enormous power and leverage and must not be underestimated. So that leaves the two main factions, which are largely operating in this country. And America is the final battlefield in this war. The Nazis, who came here via Project Paperclip and Operation Overcast, have been busy assembling the Fourth Reich here since World War II. And a deeply ensconced Zionist group, also known as the Khazarians, who have infiltrated and destroyed countries via finances for at least the last 2,000 years, and is why they've been thrown out of 106 countries in that time period. A lot of what is playing out now is the war between these two factions. The Nazis aligned with NATO, and the Zionists who control the media, airwaves and Hollywood, and so difficult to break down or into. But Nazis placed in alternative media via CIA and other three-letter agencies have unloaded many files and secrets onto the internet in the past year that has led to full exposure of the criminality within their circles, be that politics, films or media. And it is another case, an example of using the alternative media to drive a narrative for largely their benefit. We must watch for that. But we will get to see some of those we have called out brought to justice. How far it goes is anybody's guess at this point. If we keep pushing on the narrative, they will try and use it on a wider scale, and we can get them to remove more rogue elements, then we will have fulfilled our roles to that end. So here's the kicker, and also the word of warning. We are getting lots of our material now pushed into wider arenas as the war between the factions plays out. But, and it's a big but, it will not be the end unless all the factions are dealt with. 5 down to 1 will be great, as many will get arrested, executed, jailed or removed. But one faction is too many for the planet to operate in the right way. These people have psychopathic tendencies and agendas, and we must not lose sight of that fact. All eggs in one basket is never a good gamble. Trump will produce some or many of the things we wish to see, but not all, in my opinion. Why? Because Trump still has far too many lean-ins with Zionist groups and agendas. Look at this year, the first American president to attend and pray with a skullcap hat at the Western Wall. He made nice cuts in budgets to NATO and the UN and threatens to cut funding to other groups or nations. But one glaring omission has been made, hasn't it? Yes, our highest funding to one country, Israel. No mention of cuts. Trump is also in favour of settlements, stated Jerusalem to be the capital of Israel, threatened countries who largely didn't agree with that statement with fund cutting and other actions. He's an open supporter of AIPAC. Look at the cabinet appointments. Why so many from Goldman Sachs? Kushner. Just today, the love fest continues with Israel announcing the new railway station near the Western Wall to be called the Trump Station. I could go on, but you get the gist of it. You can choose to ignore all those facts, as it is your right to do so. But I have seen too many sideshow and sidetrack actions to not fall into line with more that type of bullshittery. Does it mean I just don't trust Trump? Yes and no. It's not all about Trump. But for all our lives, we have believed this politician and that politician promising this and promising that. Vote for change, they said. Vote for freedom. You did. And did it change? Yes. It changed. It went worse. More freedom? Absolutely not. Our freedoms have been eroded away like the rocks in the Grand Canyon. So this is where I advise caution. Why is this president any different? Question mark. On what grounds should we blindly trust he is working for our benefit only? Proof, as always, is in the pudding, and we await the full public evidence of things that were promised. But multiple layers of secrecy above the president, with multiple layers of it, the task is a monumental one and requires a steady stream of people standing up for what is right. He has an unenviable task, but something all should be geared towards. Those levels of secrecy need to be crushed into a far more transparent model, with minimal restrictions. All this need to know is part of their system. Then we will have a real government, a real bank, not the rogue Federal Reserve. The real republic and constitution, should that be the model for going forward. Can Trump deliver? Yes, it's possible. Can he deliver the basic outlines of what many in the alternative media clamours for? That's also possible, but also debatable. But can he change and drop what appears to be faction-based connections and come on board fully with the people? Yes, he can. And that's down to him and the people around him to really step into that role of a man for and by the people only. I hope he does. I would sooner be the only one that was wrong, rather than a load of listeners. And caution is the way forward, but more communication is required, and what we currently have is this. Hi all and welcome back. That was Civil War, failure to communicate. There's a lot of communicating going on currently, which I can't say too much about. That is rather positive for the future. We will see an interesting January. Very interesting. Well, the false flag operations this year ramped up again, as predicted, to create more fear and also to collect donations to keep them in the game. It seems the cabal liked running people over with vans this year, given the number of times they drove over us with vans on bridges, etc. in New York. But we drove tanks through their control system this year. Giant tanks. And what happened with these false flag events is they increased awareness of many of the sleepers this year, as the lies of the portal people all fell flat, more and more on deaf ears. The Grenfell Tower fire in the UK late last year woke up a whole range of people over in England. Vegas had a similar effect here also. All their big false flag events have been prevented so far, and we continue to be vigilant and in heightened alertness for any future attempts. So what of THI? Well, we are at the last show of this, our first full calendar year. Seems like we've been going longer than 19 months as we've covered so much. The flowing storybook style of context and content of our show has delivered many chapters, and so listeners can now see the connections and where it's all leading to. Our show was built on its name, truth, honour and integrity, and we have tried at all times to deliver shows with content that observes the name of the group. Do we get everything right? No, but many of you have seen our narrative unfold and explode across the internet this year, largely without endorsement or recognition of where the material came from, apart from a few notable exceptions. But that's okay, as at least the knowledge is getting out and more people are seeing through the illusions and the sleight of hand tactics displayed across much of our community. We came in with this show with the intent of getting people to think and act different. We can't expect change following the old worn-out model, and it pleases me to see many more in our group thinking and acting different. The fact so many in our group are talking about doing their own shows at this time, I find encouraging. Unlike others, I don't see that as a challenge or a threat. I see it as people growing in their own confidence and wanting to expand it. Which brings me nicely on to the next portion, which I wish to mention as I introduced an extra show this summer, where each week a member or listener to the shows can come on and do their own show with me, and the show it was called An Evening with Thomas, a chance for members to unload their stories and their lives to a wider audience. And in my opinion, those shows have been a great success, and all have been highly interesting in various ways. Now, the idea behind these shows are to get others to stand up and have their say, as your voice is just as important as mine. So a big thanks to Randy Dupre, Carl Appel, Dave Biondal, Willow Niitsuma, John Bryan, Eric Lewis, Janet Elliott, Patrick Pepper, Alistair, Zuzander, Alan James, Stephen George and Ramona Halitha, who have taken part so far. There are others lined up for the new year. We didn't have many guests on this year as the field narrowed, and so did my time. But we did have Peter Eyre on back in April, and we hope Peter, who's not very well currently, gets well soon. We also had Kevin Annett on back in May. Again, that doesn't seem that long ago, and this year's kind of flown by. And we also had Lily Earthling on back in February, plus the Kingdom of Manor show with Miss Manor in August. Members still talk of that show, and I know there are some that are still listening to it. Yes, you, Robert. Robert Baxter. I think he's up to 40 listens of that show now, and still going. And he's been begging me to do another one so we can listen to a new one. But I suspect Miss Manor will return early next year with some more booming shows. We did add 2 other special series of shows this year: Humanity Unplugged 1 and 2, and the powerful and to many disturbing stuff in the Illuminati shows 1 and 2, which is based on the Svarli material. This show in particular hit members hard, and so a decision was made to cancel the second show until a later date based on that, which allowed listeners to grasp and absorb the heinous acts and the ways outlined in show 1. We also added a website page called Think Different, which has leading articles done by Chloe and others, plus archives of all the shows and a separate archive for the special shows that have been done. And I want to especially thank Michael Jacquin for doing all of that, and also the upkeep of the People's Club website. We also introduced another social media page this year, one without AI intrusion, mind control techniques, privacy issues, data collecting issues, and no ads, called MeWe. It has most of what Facebook has, with minor alterations, and a nice chat box where all members can chime in 24/7. But it seems old habits die hard, as you said before. Some like the intrusion of Facebook, it seems, and just roll on with it. As the saying goes, you can lead the horse to water, but you can't make it drink it. Maybe next year we'll see a greater outflow from Facebook into MeWe. We'll see. Maybe the top people in Facebook might get arrested and remove all the fun and games out of it. We had a lot of intel this year, and we thank the people who provided that for our group. Too many items to remember. Probably near the top, reassessing many. Where was it? I've lost my thread now. Probably the biggest part was exposing the shenanigans of all things Rothschild, which has led to a change in many people near the top reassessing their alignment with the goons. This will help us going forward. Much of our intel this year is ahead of the game, as many of you will have noticed. Sometimes it gets repeated word for word a month or two later, and I know some of you have spotted this happening. The mainstream media in particular ran quite a bit of our stuff with their usual slant on it, but that's good, as it's forcing them to cover issues. They can call certain things fake all they like, but we know the truth. I also introduced portions of the show op-ed pieces which covered various topics of interest and went into things on a deeper or broader level that seemed to be well liked. These pieces often overlap and tie in and merge with other topics into a greater package. Many of those pieces also contain questions for the listeners or allow you to ponder on things, and there's been much pondering after op-ed pieces this year, and to expand your own level of thinking. Probably the most powerful op-ed piece was about the Nazis and the Hitler Youth, and I played the song Tomorrow Belongs to Me, which I was going to play now, but it's 15 minutes long and we're kind of running out of time. But I kind of went through the whole planet and all the American states where they came for this, and we ignored that because we didn't live there, or we ignored that because we're not one of them. We can't carry on ignoring everybody. Doesn't matter what colour, what gender, what religion even. We have to start supporting each other, the ones that matter. I added into the mix some word magic this year until the system decided to shut down the page I was accessing for definitions. It's a bit like how they like to interfere with the shows at key times as well. But that's okay, as to me that's an increasing sign of their desperation to disrupt things. That was a very popular, the word magic, as it shows how much words create spells, as in magic spells, and also shows how the bullshittery all of us have been talking and largely unaware of it. Etymology needs to be taught in school going forward so we can make sense of their word magic illusions. We also focused heavily on the psychological side of things this year, and for good reason, given the chaos appearing all around us, and it was important we took steps ahead of time to nullify or negate some of that chaos spilling over into our own lives. As regular listeners know, I do try to inject some humour into our show and lighten things up a bit. You all have your own particular favourite terminology I sprinkle into the show, whether it be bullshittery, clowns. I noticed the term clowns has begun to catch on in certain intel circles recently. It's all good. Nutty asshole, android, plus the part truth, part embellishment piece I did earlier in the year on the alternative media characters featuring David Will Cockyu and the Corey Kids Harvesting Programme, and a certain overweight fake Irishman, the man whose name fits his character, as he is keen and eager to make money off anybody, it seems. I hope the shows have taught you much this year. I know many of them have got you thinking and pondering. I suspect in 2018 many will go, so that's what he meant, or was cryptically referring to in this or that show. But although the content of the show, apart from chunks of the intel, is all done by me, I couldn't do it without the support of several people providing support in different ways. So I want to say a special thanks to Chloe, Miss Manor, Holly Higgs-Peterson, James Godbeer, Victoria Plaistow, Michael Jacquin, Andrew Simmons, Sol X Tempestas, Tyler Clifton. Yes, you, Tyler, with your I've just seen your recent GIF of Wilcock and the Blue Chicken Group. Classic. Thanks to you, as he supplies the graphics for the An Evening with Thomas show. And also the lads at OYM, Alan and Steve. Thanks to all of you for your help and support of this show. Of course, we've had sad events in THI, and of course our hearts go out to Lisa Porter Cook and family on their current ongoing sad event. And we hope her husband recovers well, but she's not the only one. Like I said, Peter Ayres in hospital. There's many others. Robert Petula has struggled this year. Robert Baxter's also struggling, and many, many others. But the overwhelming sad event was the loss of Rodney DeLoach. That hit many in the group hard, but not as hard as it hit Kathy Smith. Time, as always, lessens the pain, but the memories of Rodney will always live on. That was in the memory of Rodney DeLoach, and going out to Kathy Smith, and also to the loved ones that people lost throughout the year. It wasn't the only one. That was just the biggest one to hit, in my opinion, in THI. So young, so much to look forward to, and stripped away. But then you either buckle down, buckle under, or stand up. And this is what many have done this year, despite the attacks and all kinds of energetic fun and games. We've still stood up and still fought back in big ways. Big ways. We will see a clearer evidence of that in 2018. 2017, as it winds down in what is currently an eerie calm. But there's a tinge of expectancy pervading our community of what next year may bring. This year I termed as the unravelling, everything being unravelled, and the politicians and the media, the portal people, the financial system, the false flags, and the control system at the top levels has all unravelled spectacularly this past year. And so all of that was largely borne out. So much revealed this year, it is and has been difficult to keep track of it all. At times, to some, it has become overwhelming. But at least we were all warned of that at various stages of the year, so we could stay a step ahead of it. So the key aspect is, what can we look for in 2018? 2017 unravelled. 2018 will be the year of the unveiling. The curtain will be drawn back. Pandora's box will be opened. You need to listen to this carefully. Doors will be opened on all levels for you to walk through. There will be new plans. There will be new hopes. There will be new dreams. Doors will open to hidden realms and dimensions. There will be more intel, deeper levels of it. There will be new agreements. There will be arrests and removals will all unveil. The foundation will be built with lasting implications for many of us. The cabal will be ceremoniously beaten with a stick, pen, and the truth. Greater clarity will unveil itself on many levels as the year progresses. Justice will be served on many. I expect a rapid surge in technology, some of it good, much of it not, depending on how deep justice bites into the cabal structure. I see a surge of awakening happening early next year, as some jump on board the truth train as it departs for its around the world journey. I also expect many to lose it next year, as more of the truth is unveiled. I expect more exposure of pedogate and child trafficking, plus a greater unveiling on and of organ harvesting. I expect a handful of the big players in alternative media will come to deeply regret their folly next year. We have all worked hard to grasp, become aware, and expose that have shaped our planet to what it is today. A planet devoid of leadership, devoid of common sense, devoid of compassion, devoid of caring and sharing, devoid of morals and integrity. But the biggest flaw we have all faced, including the puppets, is an extreme lack of knowledge. It is criminal what lies and bullshit we have been fed, and that must be an ongoing theme that has to be eradicated going forward. If humanity is going to survive without the need of rogue ET elements, without the need of parents and the old elders, without the need of covens, Illuminati, dodgy secret handshake clubs, royalty, bloodlines, and class, race, sex and religious division. The key is knowledge. Knowledge and more knowledge. And I hope in the next decade we see a vast improvement in that field, so humanity can step out of their control systems and create a better world where all is equal, all has an abundance of the basic needs to support sustainable life for all of humanity and the planet itself. We have an opportunity, and that's all it is, an opportunity to grow. It will be up to all of us to step up and forward to create that brighter future. It will not be handed to us on a plate. Whilst being aware of the same pitfalls the cabal fell into of insatiable greed, overinflated egos, a sense of entitlement, and remember, only the weak and insecure dominate over others. We cannot follow their path, and that will be a test for us going forward. In many aspects, people think the hard work is to get rid of the cabal. Word of warning, it isn't, period. Due to the programming many of us have consumed over our lives, it will not be an easy transition. But the one thing the cabal taught us is how not to be. We must heed the dark lesson. To accomplish this, we need new leaders in each country who are there to lead by example and teach, and not rule with an iron fist as they have done to us. The object of humanity is to make progress in our development as a human being and a soul essence. We've had the tough upbringing via the dark lessons the cabal have taught us. The question is, will we heed those lessons? 2018 opens the door to some or much change, and that is all down to us, of how much change we can make. I suspect we will get much more support than previous years on that front in various ways. Will we walk through the doors and embrace the change, or freeze in the fear of it? Embracing the change means personal responsibility, which is something many have not done throughout their lives, as some threw responsibility onto politicians, parents or religion. But giving our power away has never worked too well for us, has it? So the key is, when the people lead, the leaders have no option but to follow. It's up to us to lead the way. The saviour you seek was always in the mirror. It was you all along. You just forgot that. That's what I suspect will unveil in 2018. Long-term listeners will know we have got a lot of the things forecast correct. I haven't gone over the top with it, been rather conservative with it. It can be so much more. It can also be so much less. I'm optimistic that things will change radically for the better. But also, we must exercise caution. I want to thank every one of you that is listening to this show, because without you, I am just a talking head. You know, I get a lot of credit for this show, but as mentioned earlier, there's a lot of people who have input into it. And it's all about working together. And that's what we've tried to create in THI. And I think overall THI has come a long way this year. Both in the knowledge aspect, but more importantly in the personal aspect. Many of you have took on board dealing with the shadow sides and doing the inner work. You're now seeing the benefits of doing that, because you're not the one in chaos when many around you are. At various times I've called for calm heads and balance. Again, 2018, calm heads and balance will be the way forward. We will continue to get nearer the top level intel. I suspect it will get a lot more interesting. I expect that we will have a number of big shows. Some big announcements. And some rather special shows in many ways. We have 3 days left of this year, and like I said at the start of this, it's been an extraordinary year. Some people it's been difficult, but overall things unravelled in a spectacular way. Things got revealed that we never imagined 1 year, 2 years, 3 years or 4 years ago. It's all out in the open now. But there was only a tiny peek into the box. That box is about to unveil a whole lot more goodies in 2018. I hope you've enjoyed tonight's show and the shows we've done this year. Look forward to 2018 with renewed vigour. The eerie calm may give way to excitement. I'm not going to give dates, I never do. But I don't think it's too long. This has been the Truth, Honour and Integrity show. My name's Thomas Williams. I wish you all a happy and healthy new year. And I'll be back again in 2018. But the best is yet to come. Bye for now.